You're listening to episode 203 of the Autism Mom Coach podcast, How to Handle Autism Meltdowns Like a Pro. Autism meltdowns are one of the hardest parts of parenting a kiddo with autism. They can take over your house, your schedule, and your confidence. A lot of us get stuck in the same cycle. We try to prevent a meltdown. And then when a meltdown is happening, we try to just jump in and shut it down as quickly as possible. All of this effort usually ends up making the meltdown worse, actually escalating it or prolonging it. That's why in this episode, I want to talk to you about the before, during, and after process that I use that will help you handle meltdowns like a pro. Hi, I'm Lisa Candera, mother to an 18-year-old son with autism and founder of the Autism Mom Coach. When my son hit puberty, aggression and self-harm became part of our daily lives, and I needed to figure out how to stay steady while he was dysregulated. No one had any real answers, so I made it my mission to figure this out myself. Through years of trial and error, I have created tools that have helped me stop escalating meltdowns, make impossible decisions, and advocate more effectively for my son for the long game. Now I've coached over 100 moms through these same struggles. I've now coached over 100 moms through these same struggles. In this podcast, I share everything I've learned and what I am still learning with you. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I am so glad you were here, and I hope you are doing well. In this week's episode, we are going to continue our deep dive into autism meltdowns. And I want to talk to you about the process that you can use. And this is the process that I use and I teach my clients so that you can handle meltdowns like a pro. But before we get to that, let's just talk about what does it mean to handle something like a pro, like a professional? It does not mean handling something perfectly. When I think of a professional, I think about someone who is prepared, someone who has a plan and follows it, and then finally, someone who was able to evaluate what went well and what didn't go well and revise that plan so that they can adapt in ways that are helpful so that they can get better at what they are doing. And so when I think about meltdowns, I think about them in that way: planning, preparation, implementation, evaluation, okay? Because meltdowns are dynamic, they are variable. There's no one size fits all. So it really does demand that we bring our own experience and flexibility so that we can get better at it. When I was at the height of meltdowns in my own home, the first thing that I knew was that figuring out how to handle a meltdown while it was happening was too late. When I was creating a process for myself, I knew that that process needed to begin before the meltdown even happened. Because I knew for me, once the meltdown was on, I was already so discombobulated and in reaction mode that it was hard for me to think straight. And so that's why in the process that I use and I now teach to my clients, we start before the meltdown even happens. When your preparation starts before the meltdown even happens, you are able to assess for yourself, what are your triggers? Okay. What are the things that set you off so that you can prepare yourself for those things? So, for example, your child walks in the door after school, slams the door, goes into their room, slams their room, and you are frustrated, you're upset, you're thinking that your child is disrespectful. That is the preparation. You know what happens. You know how you react. You know how you act when you are in that reactive mode. That is the before process. You understanding accepting that, yeah, when my kid comes home from school, I don't love it, but she is really annoyed with me. She doesn't want to talk to me. She goes right into her room, accepting that this is how it is going and this is what happens. It doesn't mean that you love it, but you're not resisting it. That is the work that you can do before the meltdown even happens so that you can just prepare yourself, that you are not bracing yourself like, oh, I wonder what she's going to be like today when she comes in, and she does the thing that she's done the last 3 days, and you are already off to the races with your own frustration. When you start the preparation beforehand, it's not only for what may happen with your kiddo, but how you react to it. And then when you're in that space before it happens, you can actually make a plan for what you will do and what you won't do in those moments. So, for example, I got to the point with my son where when he walked through the door, I didn't say a word to him. I didn't ask him about his day. I just stayed in my office. I continued to do whatever I was doing. And I wasn't, getting in his face. How was your day? What's going on? Do you have any homework? None of it. I just let him come in. I let him do whatever he was going to do. And I stayed put. That really took a lot of hard work on my part because the urge is to, ask a lot of questions, figure out what his mood is. Is he in a good mood? Is he in a bad mood? Is he going to be melting down? All of that nervous energy, bringing it to the situation, never helped. So, when you are thinking about how to handle a meltdown, thinking about what you will do and what you won't do and what your plan will be beforehand is what is going to enable you to execute that plan when it is happening. Because when you are spending all the time before the meltdown, bracing for it, walking on eggshells, instead of making a plan when the meltdown is actually happening, you are on your back foot. You're not prepared. And that is when you are going to be more reactive than you want to be. Instead, shifting to the acceptance that meltdowns happen and having a plan is going to be able to give you something to focus on and concrete steps that you're going to need when you are in that fight flight mode. Next, we move to the during phase. During the meltdown, it is on what do you do? Well, unless your child is eloping or actually, in immediate harm, if safety is not an immediate issue, you need to slow it down. So, in fact, in the during phase, you are going to be resisting all of your urges to jump in, to say more, to scold, to direct, all of those things that can escalate the situation. Instead, pausing, slowing it down, grounding yourself. Another big thing during the during phase is that, hey, this meltdown is happening and you have other expectations and priorities for how the day should be going, quote unquote, should be going. So you're dropping your kiddo off from school and they're having a meltdown in the back seat because they don't want to get out of the car. And if you are only focusing on, my train's going to be here in 10 minutes and I need to go, 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 that is going to raise your anxiety. It's going to bring more urgency to the situation. And so in the during phase, it's so important to be able to ground yourself in the present moment. And that is a really hard thing to do. However, the better you can get at just staying focused on what is happening now and not projecting out into the future, the easier it will be for you to remain calm and to bring that co regulating energy, that calm, grounded energy that your child needs for them to be able to regulate quicker themselves. And then finally, when it comes to handling meltdowns like a pro, you have to have a strategy for after the meltdown has ended. A lot of times, after the meltdown has ended for the kiddo, they go off and they're just living their best life, and mom or dad are a hot mess, right? We are wanting to maybe jump in and scold them or tell them why this wasn't okay and what is going to happen next time. And jumping in with that energy right after the meltdown has happened is a surefire way of, tripping off the next meltdown. And so again, it's like whatever urge you're having is resisting that urge and focusing on grounding yourself, regulating yourself, getting out all of that stress energy that has built up inside of you so that you can let it go. You can process it instead of living in the meltdown for hours and days after it's already over. This is one of the biggest things I've experienced and I see in all of my clients is the meltdown is over for the kid, but we are living it over and over. Our guilt, our shame, our anxiety, our fear playing over. And what this actually does is it primes us for the next meltdown in the wrong way. We are what I would call trigger happy. And so the littlest thing can set us off. Instead of using this after phase to beat yourself up, I really encourage my clients to just take a look at what went well, what worked, what didn't work, so that they can get really particular on the things that they will do differently the next time, because this will set you up for the next time. And there will be a next time because such is life. So, in this after phase, it's really important to do the work of shifting the blame and the guilt and the frustration into grounding yourself, reconnecting with your child, and reviewing what was helpful, what wasn't, and deciding how you will go forward the next time. So, that is in a nutshell the before, during, and after process that I use myself and I teach my clients. If you want to dive into the full process and each of the elements in more detail, you can do that now by grabbing my free training, Reduce Autism Meltdowns, this week by 50% by going to the show notes. In less than 1 hour in this video training, I am going to take you through the before, during, and after process, and I'm going to apply it to 7 different meltdown scenarios so that you can see in real life how to implement this. All of those scenarios come from either my lived experience or one of my clients, and I am going to share with you the before, during, and after process used in each of those scenarios. You can grab this training right now, again, by going to the show notes. All right, everyone, thank you for listening. I will talk to you next week. Thanks for listening to the Autism Mom Coach. If you are ready to apply the principles you are learning in these episodes to your life, it is time to schedule a consultation call with me. Podcasts are great, but the ahas are fleeting. Real change comes from application and implementation, and this is exactly what we do in my one-on-one coaching program. To schedule your consultation, go to my website, theautismmomcoach.com, work with me, and take the first step to taking better care of yourself so that you can show up as the parent you want to be for your child with autism.